Pleased now to be joined by the one and only, the legendary, the supremely handsome, a great friend of mine. We've actually hung out together in several different cities, which isn't true for most people I work and interact with these days, just given the way the world works and operates in 2023. From the Jake Asman Show, it is Jake Asman. I mean, what an appropriate name for my buddy Jake. Jake, happy week 2 in the NFL.
Happy week too, RJ. Always great to catch up with you, man. So I appreciate you having me on.
You are the most sports radio-y person that I know. And I say that in the most complimentary sort of way. I've interacted with a lot of radio people. I mean, we met you, me and my friends from San Antonio, when you were still in college, right? Is that correct? You guys or it was like a collegiate show that y'all were doing, and I think it was Minnesota at the time when we first met, or it might have been Houston.
So 1 year out of college, I believe, because I think it was the Minnesota Super Bowl where our tables at Radio Row were right
Right.
next to each other, right? So I was 1 year out. I was working for a small, internet station on the east end of Long Island, and kind of like found a way to kind of somehow get a press credential to go to Radio Row, and we were just hustling for guests like a lot of people do that week. And you guys were awesome, and getting a chance to kind of be next to you guys throughout the week was a blast, man. That was a fun Super Bowl.
You guys killed it. It was one of those like, man, they just have guests rolling in and in and in and in. I don't know how you all slept, but that was the coldest week of my life in
Oh,
Minnesota.
100%. I don't think it gets colder than that week, man. What was it, like negative 25 with the wind chill? It was nuts.
Yeah, I'm not from the East Coast. I'm from deep South Texas, so like, I mean, I'm real soft on that stuff. But it was quite the awakening, to say the least. Much like I'm sure has been your experience, you are also the most New York Jets person that I know. Full disclosure for everyone, I asked Jake last week to come on. It was before the world flipped upside down for New York Jets fans. And like the man of his word he is, he's powering through. What have the last few days been like, Jake? The whole NFL world obviously knows about the Aaron Rodgers story and the dramatic, kind of terrible nature of it all.
It's been surreal, RJ. I'm still trying to like find the words to like process it. I've done a couple radio hits. I've tried to do my show these last couple days, and it's just like you go through like just the different stages of grief with it. Like it hasn't really sit in that here's the guy who meant everything to this franchise, seemingly did everything right from showing up to every OTA, every training camp practice. The world got to watch him up close on Hard Knocks and see the way he truly is away from maybe what your preconceived notion of the guy was. And to have it all end just 4 snaps in before his Achilles snaps, man, it's just it's brutal. Like that's the word I keep coming back to: brutal, cruel. It's just it's a fan base that is so passionate, loves their team, has not made the playoffs since 2010. We finally felt like, hey, we have the team, and you have a guy who could get you there, get you over the top, make you a true contender, and it's gone just like that. And I think what's really cruel, especially, is you watch the rest of that game. The Jets win. It's an unbelievable performance by their defense. They score a touchdown to win on special teams in overtime. And it kind of just reaffirmed what I knew as a fan watching them last year, that they were a quarterback away. And they go out there, they have this great win on Monday without said quarterback. They're able to win with Zach Wilson, who kind of rallied them a little bit and made some plays when he had to. And you're just thinking, man, it's last year all over again, but this could have been so much more if Aaron Rodgers is able to stay healthy and he goes down 4 plays in. It's brutal, man. There's no other way to describe it.
Yeah, there's no prize for this, but I do think it is hitting. I want to say should hit Jets fans harder than it would hit anybody else in a similar situation, because this is such a scorned fan base. And my perception is that over the offseason, since Aaron arrived, there was this letting of the guard down, right? This like, okay, we're willing to believe, we're willing to cast aside our preconceived notions about what this franchise is limited by, like all the history and all the past. And so to kind of be willing to love again and to have it burned so quickly, it's just, I mean, it is cruel. Like it is one of the more cruel things I've seen happen to an NFL fan base.
It's just hard, man, because you think about it. They have the longest playoff drought in professional sports. It's them and the Buffalo Sabres. Like the last time the Jets made the playoffs, Rex Ryan was in his second year with Mark Sanchez in his second year. Like the Jets have been, they've been the team that everyone loves to make fun of. Same old Jets, they're a joke.
Right.
And Rodgers comes here defied same old Jets. It's like they have the offensive and defensive rookie of the years. They have a first team all pro in Quinnen Williams. They had Breece Hall, who, was probably going to win offensive rookie of the year if he didn't go down in week 7 last year. So you have all this talent. You win 7 games last year with Zach Wilson for 9 games. Mike White and the corpse of Joe Flacco, and you're like, we're just a quarterback away from really being one of the better teams in the league. And you have that guy, he goes down. It's the history of the Jets. They're always the team that's a quarterback away, or when they have been, a playoff team, a good team, it's always, well, great defense and a running game. That's how they got to win. It's like, man, we wanted to win because we had Aaron Rodgers with a great defense who's going to throw the ball to Garrett Wilson and turn that guy into Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. And it's just it's just brutal, man. Like I'm still processing it because it's like you spend all offseason excited, ready for this team to be one thing, and now it's right back to Zach Wilson, who statistically was the worst quarterback in football last year. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah, and obviously the impact of that has been felt. I'm sure you've seen the line moved. Dallas opened as 3-point favorites for this game. I think it's up to 9.5 right now. And that's another kind of interesting dynamic here is his role within the team and how he sort of, I don't think he got enough credit for kind of willingly embracing, his newfound role. It takes a big person to kind of, own up to your failures or whatever, and do it so jovially the way that he has. And so I understand Robert Saleh saying, like, I don't understand why everyone's pronouncing our season to be dead. I think we understand, Robert. I mean, I can think, we're all on the same page here. So to have to kind of revert back to that is really, at the very least, interesting thing to have to watch. It's frustrating and painful as it is for you and other Jets fans. But do you have any hopes? I mean, again, I know that sounds like a joke, but like, do you have any hopes that maybe Zach Wilson, after an off season's worth of tutoring from Aaron Rodgers, can be an improved player? Because Cowboys fans have been burned themselves. They know not to make too much out of a 40-0 win in that very building. And they know that can fall apart very quickly, that being 1-0 means nothing.
No doubt. And look, I'll say this for Zach Wilson. He did make a couple plays on Monday night, man. Like I had no faith in him when they're down 13-3 at the half. He throws this brutal interception, but they don't need him to be great for them to win. Like this Jets defense is probably as good as any in the league, maybe besides your team's defense, because we know how good the Cowboys front is. Like the Jets will be in this game on Sunday. Like I don't know if they're going to win. It's going to be hard to win when Zach Wilson is such an unknown at this point. But the way I look at it is, if Rodgers being there makes him a tick better, if Nathaniel Hackett, who's coordinated a top 10 offense with Blake Bortles, and that team led the NFL in rushing in 2017, could do something similar with Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook. If the 20 dropbacks Zach Wilson potentially has, 10 of those targets go to Garrett Wilson. Like Breece, I mentioned Breece, but AVT, their all-pro guard, is now back in the line. Mekhi Becton looked great at right tackle the other night. Like if Zach Wilson could just be mediocre, they should be able to be in a lot of games. It's just he was so bad last year, RJ, that even me saying if he could just be mediocre seems like a stretch. Now, I understand why Saleh says he's our guy. He's got to say that publicly. They can't get a new quarterback in this quickly.
Right.
And the reality is, like, he knows the offense. He's been there. He does, for at least this week, give them the best chance to win. But, I mean, it's just deflating. But, I will say, that locker room believes, man. They do. And I think the Jets are well coached. So if you have that and you have a running game and a good defense, we've seen crazier things happen. They can compete in some of these games.
I don't think it certainly wouldn't be unheard of to see kind of a rally from the Jets, right? This like nobody believes in us, whatever. Again, it's understandable why Robert Saleh would say what he did. It's only been, you and I are recording this on Wednesday. It's only been not even 48 hours, obviously, since the injury first happened. Your initial read on this, because initially, like the immediate moment, understandably, was like devastation, right? Even, there was the Garrett Wilson line about the sorry kid, things like that. Do you view this, in your estimation and your coverage, as the Jets kind of picking themselves up and dusting themselves off, or are they allowing for some, very understandable decompression, maybe a little bit of a pity party? Like, again, that's completely and totally fair game here, given all the circumstances.
The fact that they came back and won that game tells me that, you know what, they understand how significant it is, but they maybe kind of using it as a rally cry, like, hey, let's win this for Aaron. Look what he did. Look, he showed us you showed us how to win. He believed in us. We still got the talent to win. And to the Jets' credit, I mean, they beat one of the supposedly best teams in the league down 13-3 at halftime, right? Like the defense is legit. Like they have the ability to keep them in any game, because they just that's kind of what they've done. Like they did that all, even when the Jets were collapsing at the end of last year. Go look at the points allowed. Like I think the most
Right.
they allowed in any of those games was like 27 to the Seahawks when their season was clearly over at that point. Like they for a season they only allowed 18.6 points per game. So they think they're going to be in every game. Now, they have the horses on offense to maybe kind of mask the deficiencies at quarterback, but it's still going to be tough. Like I don't think it's hidden, hey, we're screwed. at this point. But if Zach plays poor against Dallas, then they play the Patriots and Belichick the following week. Last year, I don't need to remind any Jet fan this, the two worst games of Zach Wilson's season were both against Belichick. And that essentially got him benched and started the whole, Mike White era, so to speak. Short-lived that was, but that's what started it, a season ago. So, right now, I think they have confidence in the team. But if he struggles on Sunday and then he doesn't bounce back against Belichick, all of a sudden it's like, well, here we go again. And then you play the Chiefs and this thing starts to spiral. So they got to find a way to just let Zach Wilson not lose them the game. Maybe he won't win you the game, but can they stay afloat with Zach Wilson just not being asked to do too much? And is that enough to maybe kind of win 9 games, 10 games maybe with this defense and still be a playoff team? I don't know, but that's got to be their path if they're going to still have a season.
The same Mike White, who started his career with the Cowboys.
That's
Every
right.
Cowboys fan kind of was really enjoying that run. Just you know how it is. I'm really interested. So you were obviously in an entirely understandable world of emotions on Monday night. The discourse that I was experiencing unfold on the internet was all directed at Josh Allen. So I mean, in no way to take away from the defensive performance of the Jets on Monday night, but I do think it was certainly aided and abetted by Josh Allen and his erratic decision making. As a fan of an AFC East team, you know that better than I do.
Sure.
And it felt like Monday night the national media caught up a little bit to that. Like people kind of maybe had the fog in front of their eyes lifted. I've said before, I don't think anyone's gotten more out of a loss than Josh Allen did in the divisional round against the Chiefs. Like that turned him into like this martyr for, national media, just like thinking like, oh my gosh, this dude is Mahomes. He just lost this game. I like Josh Allen for the record, but I'm really fascinated to see Dak Prescott go up against this Jets defense 1 week after Josh Allen did. And if he doesn't, I'm not saying Dak has to throw for 350 yards, but if he just stays out of his own way, I think that proves a big and stark difference in terms of erratic decision making that is more associated with Josh Allen, or should be at least, than it was Dak Prescott. I mean, you saw the headlines over the offseason and the interceptions from last year. So that's my long way of saying, are you worried about facing Dak Prescott? You believe in this defense, but coming off of facing Josh Allen, does he scare you? Does the Cowboys offense scare you? We know the Cowboys defense understandably does, especially given the Zach Wilson factor. But does Dak Prescott and what Mike McCarthy is going to do as an offensive play caller worry you?
Look, I'd be worried just because, even the Jets defense plays well. Like, they still could easily lose because they just might not be able to score enough points. To be honest, I don't think there's any quarterback that, like, quote unquote, worries me. Like, this was a Jets defense that didn't allow a 300-yard passer at all last year. Like, they're good, man, whether it was Allen or beating Rodgers last year or, even containing Joe Burrow the way they did at the beginning of the last season. Like, they basically have played a lot of really good quarterbacks and have proven they're legit. What concerns me about the Cowboys is, the just how nasty that defense is. I think Dak is a good quarterback. And I do agree with you with Josh Allen, by the way. But what concerns me with the Jets is like they had this great win. As good as the defense is, it is not sustainable to have 4 turnovers every game. It is
Sure.
not sustainable to then get a special teams touchdown. They're going to need to score points offensively. And if Zach Wilson can't do that, I don't care who the quarterback is for the Cowboys. Like, as long as they score at least 13 points, that might be enough given the state of the Jets offense. Like, I have all these different unknown feelings on what this offense looks like with Zach, because the last time I saw him play as the starter, he was awful. And he was okay on Monday, but, that throw to Garrett Wilson where he makes one of the greatest catches you ever see, that was a bad throw that Garrett Wilson bailed him out on. So I'm like, I can't even say, well, great job, throwing that touchdown pass, because, Garrett Wilson is superhuman. So it's going to be a lot, man. It's going to be tough. I'll be at that game on Sunday. I'm flying down to Dallas for it. I'm excited to see that stadium. And here I am thinking Aaron Rodgers, who, as you guys know, seemingly owns the Cowboys. He's not going to be there to do it. It's
Yeah, I
brutal.
don't know. Maybe you did know, or do know. He's never lost there. Obviously, that's still true. And obviously won the Super Bowl there with Mike McCarthy. They got to match up last year at Lambeau. That was really cool. And I think as Cowboys fans, like, look, I mean, nobody likes it. At least nobody should like injuries. And so it was really kind of this huge bummer because everybody was looking forward to the test of Rodgers, especially coming off of Sunday night. It was like, okay, that's great, but did it against Daniel Jones. Can you get to Aaron Rodgers the exact same way? Can the Cowboys beat Tom Brady for the first time last year in the wild card round? Can you beat Aaron Rodgers at home? And so
Yep.
the entire NFL was really robbed of just something really special, I think, this season. But I do think that's why some people will still kill Dak for whatever. That's just kind of like heavy is the head that wears the crown. He does. But I don't think Dak needs to do a lot. To your point, like I think let Zach Wilson try to win this game and in the process potentially lose it, right? Like, and that's why I think we could see a similar stat line from last week. I mean, Dak Prescott didn't light the world on fire, but he might not have to. I mean, if Zach Wilson is turning the ball over, whatever the case may be, what would impress you for the Cowboys to do? Like, what would you, you said you're going to the game. How would you leave and go, holy crap, I didn't think that could happen against my team.
If they score more than like 24 points, I'd be like, hey, that's pretty good. Now, I guess it depends how they do it, right? Like you look at the game on Sunday night against the Giants, they're just Dak in that offense. Like they didn't really have to do much because the Giants were turning the ball over. You had the brutal play on special teams they got it going on the missed kick. So if Dak looks good against the Jets defense, that would impress me because the Jets, to their credit, have really done a good job just finding a way to keep them in games, despite the fact there's a clear deficiency in the matchup at quarterback. And now the Jets enter almost every game this year where you feel like they have the worst quarterback, unless Zach proves me wrong and he could take a big step forward, which it seems like an unknown at this point.
Um, I've turned into a bit of a Mike McCarthy guy. I didn't see that like character arc in my own life. That's just kind of the way things go. You know how it is. Like sometimes you just have to defend something, and it just kind of becomes a take that you hold really passionately. Mike McCarthy interviewed for the Jets job several years ago, and I understand right now you're probably feeling an incredibly different amount of love for Robert Saleh. Again, in the fallout of everything on Monday night. So I'm not. And my question isn't, do you prefer Mike McCarthy to Robert Saleh, but do you at least wonder? I mean, based on the success that McCarthy has had in his time with the Cowboys, what that would have looked like if he had taken the Jets job?
Yeah, well, I mean, I wanted Mike McCarthy as the Jet head coach, but remember, Mike McCarthy interviewed and they went with Adam Gase. So,
Right.
like, think about that. So I wanted Mike McCarthy. To me, it was a no-brainer. He had won a Super Bowl. He had been a winning coach in Green Bay. Like, that was the guy I wanted the Jets to hire. They didn't. They hire Adam Gase. It's an unmitigated disaster for 2 years. It never should have happened. And I'll say this about Mike McCarthy. I don't think he's a great coach, but the way he's talked about, it's as if he's one of the worst coaches in the league, and he's not. You know what I mean? I'm not going to sit here and say he's phenomenal, he's this, he's that, because I do think there's some fair criticisms of the guy, for only winning one ring with Rodgers and all that, and some of the things that's happened in Dallas. But like him or not, the guy's got a really good career record, and people fawn over Sean Payton. Mike McCarthy's resume is just as good as Sean Payton. So, I'm not a McCarthy guy, so to speak, but I do think we got to be fair. This idea he's this terrible coach is nonsense. He's not.
I think you earned a lot of points with people for bringing up Sean Payton because you mentioned, I mean, like, look, it's fair to penalize Mike McCarthy for having only one Super Bowl with one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Well, Sean Payton had Drew Brees and
Right.
not only won one Super Bowl, but also went 7-9 3 years in a row. He really is Mike McCarthy with just a lot better PR and better friends in the national media, it would seem. So I know it's difficult to offer a prediction, so I don't need you to offer like a score or a winner, but like, what is your prediction for like how it will unfold? Maybe it's like, I have absolutely no idea, but this is a really unique thing. Like, what are you expecting to see? What can you predict, I guess, at this point?
I think it's going to be a close game. I do because I just think I just because everyone's going to be on the Cowboys this week. They're going to be picking against Zach Wilson. The public bets are all going to be on Dallas, and then I think when the Jets are kind of at their best when they're an underdog. That's Saleh was really good when they were healthy last year when they were 6-3, 7-4. They were an underdog in every game. They beat the Bills last year as a 13.5-point underdog. They should have beat the Patriots twice last year if Zach Wilson didn't barf all over himself. They did go into Lambeau and beat Aaron Rodgers a year ago. They did go into Denver, and look, I know Denver was a mess last year, but they did go into Denver, tough place to play, and win on the road. So the Jets have actually been a better road team the last year than they have been at home. So I expect a close game. It's just it's tough for me to sit here and pick the Jets to win when I just don't know what they are on offense. So I think Dallas probably wins a close game, but it wouldn't shock me if the Jets did win just because the narrative after week one is Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl, best defense in the league. Holy crap, look what they did. And I think it might be more so that the Giants actually I think are very overrated relative to what their expectations are. So we'll see. But if I had to make a pick, I'd pick Dallas to win, but I do think it's a close game.
Two very quick hitters for you, Jake, and then we'll get out of here. One, the last time the Jets visited the Cowboys was in 2015. It was a Jet win on a Saturday night.
The Fitzpatrick game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you recall who the Cowboys quarterback was?
I think the Cowboys quarterback was Kellen Moore, right?
Not in terms of who started it, but that is the answer I was fishing for. Matt Castle started it and did something I've never seen before. He threw an interception while getting called for intentional grounding. I'd never seen that happen before.
That's
until that happened in that game. But yeah, then Kellen Moore relieved him. and then shortly after entered the world of coaching. So my last
That was
one
a
has
close game. That game had no business being close. I remember watching that game being like the Jets, because the Jets needed to win that game to keep their playoff hopes alive. And like I just remember, like they cannot lose this game to Kellen Moore and Matt Castle.
it was really that was, I think about seasons where I've kind of been where you are, when Tony Romo would get hurt, certainly when Dak Prescott got hurt. That was Tony Romo's year where he missed 12 games, and the NFC East was so bad that the Cowboys were still kind of in the mix at that point, but everyone had kind of punted their hopes on the season at that point. That led to the Zeke Elliott pick and the Dak Prescott pick and everything, blah 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 blah. My last one has nothing to do with this, but it's super important. Who's winning the World Series? Because I know you're a Houston Astros believer.
Yeah, I saw they lost to the A's last night, which is
Dude,
just
that
like
was tough.
yikes.
Yeah,
I mean, they let the Rangers get right back into the division conversation after they owned their asses. What was that last week already?
it's like 39-10, right, over the series. It was
Yeah.
stupid.
As someone who did, radio in Houston for 5 years, it's tough for me to pick against the Astros because I've just seen this too many times. I do think this is probably their weakest team they've had during this like dynastic run
Right.
they have been on, and it's so tough to win back to back. There's a reason why it hasn't happened since the late '90s Yankees dynasty. They were able to accomplish that, but would it shock me if the Astros got to the World Series and then won it all? Absolutely not. I just tend to try and fade against the team that won the previous year because we haven't seen a back-to-back winner. So I'll say the Braves, but it
That's
wouldn't
fair.
shock me if it's a Braves-Astros World Series rematch from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I was really kind of hoping for a Braves Dodgers rematch, but LA's just lost so much juice. Like, and it's difficult to not believe in Atlanta right now. I think that's fair.
They're loaded,
Um,
man. It's tough. But the Astros, I mean, you can't count them out. They always seemingly find a way to get it done. So they lost last night. Like to me, I'm still making a pick who's going to win the AL West. I still would go with the Astros.
they'll probably sweep Baltimore, right? Like that. That's like exactly what they'll do. They'll like come out of this and then like sweep them, and they'll be like, "Oh, holy crap, here they come." But anyway,
They've been brutal at home this year, man. It's been weird how they have not
well,
won games at Minute Maid.
now there's the like conversation about the batter's eye, and that's like affecting them. Whatever. But either way, Jake, I hope you enjoy your trip. I hope you have a wonderful trip. Get some Whataburger. That's always a must. I think when you stop in the Lone Star State. Offer all the plugs. The Jake Asman Show is a must everywhere people can access you. Please.
Yeah, Jake Asman on YouTube is where you can find me, and then you'll hear me on 98.7 ESPN New York as well. So basically, those two things is what I'm up to these days.
You're one of the hardest working people I know, and I hope that this Jets season gives you something you deserve because you and everybody else have been waiting long enough.
I
Uh,
appreciate it, man. It's I'll tell you what. If any fan base could handle something like this, it's the Jet fan because this is all. We're back to being the team that everyone gets to make fun of again. We haven't seen this one before.
yeah, you're built for this
Oh,
in ways that most people aren't. So
that's right.
I'll definitely say that. Jake, thanks so much for joining us. Have a great trip. But I hope that they lose. But again, hope it's like a moral win. You know what I mean? And it's like it's signs of positivity for the future. And Dallas gets it 2-0.
Hey, look, I'm a Cowboys fan this year because you guys play the AFC East, so I got to root for you guys against the Dolphins. I got you guys, or I got to root for you guys against the Patriots. So I mean the Bills, of course. So I'm all in on the Dallas Cowboys beating every team in the division besides the Jets.
Well said. Thanks so much, Jake.
You got it, RJ.